Hello, StarrCast listeners. Thanks for joining us for another episode of StarrCast, where we dive into all things wellness business oriented. We're going to take a broad tack this week and revisit a subject that we touched on in late January, but in more in depth. And to do that, I am so lucky to have Susie Ellis here, the CEO and chairman of the Global Wellness Summit and the Global Wellness Institute, the nonprofit Global Wellness Institute. They are the people that put out the trend report that we all anxiously await in late January every year. And Susie has kindly agreed to come on and kind of dive into the trends a little bit with me now that they've been out there for, I guess it's been about 6 weeks, and we've had time to digest the amazingly huge book that was delivered with them. So anyway, thank you for joining us today, Susie.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for having me. And I always look forward to our discussion about trends because you are someone that is in the middle of all of this. And so I learn a lot from you as well.
Oh, well, that's kind of you. You know, we all have to learn from each other, and there's so much out there now. I've been in wellness space, as you have, Susie, for decades. We don't even want to say how many. And yet there's always something that you didn't see or you didn't sort of put the pieces together. So it's really wonderful that the Institute and the Summit pulled together all of these great writers to share their thoughts. I know, Susie, maybe you can speak for a moment about how this comes about, the process of gathering these trends, because it comes out in January, but I know it goes on all year.
That is very true because we've been doing trend predictions for almost 2 decades. The Global Wellness Summit is, in fact, celebrating its 20th anniversary this year when we meet in Thailand. Last year we met in Dubai. And trends is something we've become known for because we do think about it all year. We look for what's emerging, and we try especially to look at what we see in the future so that we're not just reporting on what is happening, but what we think is going to happen. And I think that, sets us apart. And over the years, we've learned that, there are people who are experts at certain areas where we really want to know. And some of the trends this year, we'll talk about who wrote them because they're usually someone that is an expert in this arena and they have more foresight than maybe those of us who are more generally aware of wellness. So, practically what I do is all year long, I have a notebook, and whenever something comes up and I think, I'm going to take a look at that for, possibly next year's trend. And then I make a note. And some of our team, quite a few of our team do that so that as the year goes on, we then compare our notes. And then I would say what's very important is our Global Wellness Summit, because we bring together people from 50 different countries, hundreds of people, and we really look and listen to what they're seeing. And so that usually happens near the end of the year. So then when we finally put the full trends list together, we incorporate their input. And, Beth McGroarty, who champions this, also with Jane Kitchen, they're experts at trend analysis. We challenge each other because there's really more than 10 trends. And so it's a matter of us narrowing down the ones we really want to highlight for the next year. And we make that final decision in December. And then we go through a very fast process of writing, editing, and then coming out with it at the end of January at our press event, which happens in New York. And this year we had 150 press there. And the good thing on this podcast, Lisa, is I get to share with you what some of the reaction has been from the press. Mm-hmm. That informs us also for future.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, it is a lengthy process, and yet you compress the actual writing of that into a short time frame. That's the thing with trends. They have to be timely, right? You can't wait too long until the trend publishes. And as you say, there are so many things. So it is really hard to read the tea leaves. But I think over the years, your organization has done a wonderful job of predicting actual trends, not just fads. So let's dive in. The first trend we have is called Women Get Their Own Lane in Longevity. The subtitle, Men Have Dominated the Longevity Market, but the Future is Female. We know we like that. This trend was written by Beth McGroarty, who is the VP of Research and Forecasting for Global Wellness and is all things wellness. I mean, she's a virtual encyclopedia of what's going on in the world. So it's always wonderful to see what Beth's take on this is. So, Susie, what are your thoughts about this trend in particular?
Well, the women get their own lane in longevity. First of all, just between you, me, and your listeners, our first trend is usually one that we feel is maybe the most important. It's certainly usually the one Beth writes. It's very well researched. And this one, all of our trends are important, but this one is in particularly, women getting their own lane in longevity is very important because in the past, and I think more people know this now than before, even in scientific studies, they studied men all of the time. It was, they have not studied women that as they have with men. And when you think about the longevity arena, I mean, you think about the people like Brian Johnson, Andrew Huberman, David Sinclair, Mark Hyman, Peter Attia. It's all men. And so you have this male, the male faces for the longevity movement. You have the research that's been mostly about men, even though a lot of people apply it to women. So the fact that now there's a lot more research and people are paying attention and there's more encouragement to invest in research. And one thing that Beth discovered, which is maybe new to some people, a lot of times we talk about women's health and it ends up being a lot about menopause.
Right.
The differentiation between men and women. But what really is important now is that it's really a little more about the ovary. And it's not just about menopause, it's about every stage in life for a woman, how a woman's health differs from a man's. And in particular, there's a lot of research that shows that even though women live longer than men, because lifespans are usually longer for women, they spend more time in ill health at the end of their lives. So their health span is not so good. So there's lots of reasons to be focused on women's health. And maybe, Lisa, you can mention a few of the things that you think was interesting in that trend.
Well, first of all, what you said about the research on men, I've heard that because I've been coming to the summit, but that was the first place I'd ever heard it. When all of the various physicians and medical professionals that speak at the summit have said, this testing has all been on men. And I've just thought, what? But it's very true. Before the 1900s, women were less than 20% of trials before the 1990s. Now it's up to 40 or 45%. But all of these studies that we've relied on for decades, none were done on women, who are, of course, 51% of the population. Apparently, they were excluded because there were concerns about pregnancy, I guess, in a study, if they got pregnant, what the changes would be, or the hormonal cycles. But, we are very different. The second thing that really struck me was that whole focus on the ovary. I never thought about this fact that a man keeps his endocrine glands his whole life, right? They don't die like ours do halfway through our life. And I never really thought about that aspect of what we have to deal with the ovary function stopping, increase in aging due to that menopause and all the fun things that come with that men just don't have to deal with. So that was really interesting to focus on those issues. The idea that women's longevity medicine could even be a new clinical and wellness category, that's very specific. You and I were at the Lake Nona Impact Forum last week, and we'll talk about that at the end, but Carol Lee was there, who's a head of WHAM, Women's Health Movement, and very learned and really out there trying to make sure women are represented in this. And so it's good to know that it's changing, but, is it in time? It's changing slowly. So in the future, Beth was writing that clinics and wearables and gyms and telehealth, everyone will be able to focus in more on the female biology more specifically. So that will be helpful for us. But I just never really thought how important our ovaries are to the female biology.
And I remember learning to my horror, it was even they didn't use female mice, on all of the studies where they did mice. It was all male mice, probably for the same reason. Um, but I was just wondering, Lisa, what we did last year, I thought was so interesting because I love your podcast, and there's so many people that listen to it that are in the industry. So I thought maybe a new little twist, or one we did last week, is how can this trend be helpful to people in the industry? How can they, maybe connect with it in some way? And I mean, my first thought is through education, just like you said. I mean, we didn't know a lot of these things. And my guess is that a lot of the people who go to spas or to go to health or wellness clinics or hospitality or all of the different arenas that your podcast reaches, I think a lot of people don't know this. So just educating people about some of the statistics that are in this trend and also what you mentioned, I think that's probably already a good contribution. What do you think?
Oh, I think it's true for us as professionals to realize that this has been overlooked. It's being addressed now. And what can we do on the spa professional side, on the wellness professional side, to bring a spotlight on women? I mean, certainly in your programming, in your facility, you can highlight things that are for women. I have seen menopausal facials on menus. I have a consulting client whose entire business is pregnancy. Preparing, priming the body for it, dealing with bodies during it, and then the postpartum part. That's all they do in massage and body work. So I think we're going to see more of this specialization, and I think that it's not too late, to do more, to highlight more that women's needs are different. I love the idea of facials and body treatments that are specific to women's needs ever, and certainly at a certain time of life, which would be post menopausal.
And I think we're seeing more discussion about hormones now as well. And, one thing that organizations can do is to bring in speakers, medical professionals, because they can talk to this, especially people women who are very much knowledgeable about this difference. That alone can be very, very educational. And that way, it's not like we have to teach all of this, that isn't maybe necessarily our background, but it's exposing our audiences to this reality. And I think, as you said at Lake Nona, I mean, this is now a big deal because people know that women, they're controlling the healthcare dollars and they're controlling the spending. So this is an important economic issue for everyone. So
Right. They can't be ignored. They have the pocketbook now, so we need to pay attention to them. Well, I thought it was really, of course, as usual with Beth writing it, really well researched and contextual, and lots of great information in there. So good. Year of the Woman. We're happy about that. Trend number 2, the over-optimization backlash. This was written by, the subtitle is Pushing Back on Peak Wellness, and we'll dive into what that means. This was written by Jessica Smith, who is a strategist and the co-founder of Maya in the UK. So over-optimization backlash, I mean, it's clear when you read it, it means we've been staring at screens and data for too long, tracking our wearables. People want to step back and have an analog approach and not be tracking everything, because why? It stresses us out, right? I mean, if you're wearing a wearable, I don't do it anymore. I still wear mine, but I don't check it every morning. I look once in a while when I'm working out at what's my heart rate right now. But you can really get wrapped around the numbers. And then it creates more stress, which was not the point of the device in the first place. So we feel like we're constantly performing in life, and that, of course, is stressful.
It's a good point, and we are definitely seeing that. There's a lot of conversation about this because, we're checking our sleep. There are glucose monitors. We're tracking aging. Um, we have the Fitbit, we have Whoop, the Aura Ring, etc. And what's happened is that rather than it necessarily becoming, insight, which can be very valuable, now we're starting to feel a bit of pressure. And I personally have had that experience myself because I do have an Aura Ring. And I had a little break from my Aura Ring. In fact, when I was just recently traveling, I thought, you know, I get kind of bad news every morning with my Aura Ring because I am not a great sleeper. And it's valuable to sort of teach me, when it's better and when it's not. So the wearables, and I had the glucose monitor. No doubt, very helpful. And, for a lot of people, I mean, it's saved some people's lives to know that, their heart rate, there's AFib and so on. So it's a matter of finding the balance. Yes, the wearables are valuable. Yes, the diagnostics are valuable. And where do you get to the point where it's over optimization and we're now talking about, getting things wrong and having the stress? So it's something to be aware of. And I think it's probably going to continue, but it's going to be a matter of finding the balance. It's not like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I think.
No, for sure. We still want them, but we can't be obsessed about it. And I think in the trend, Jessica wrote about the fact that the next phase of wellness would be nervous system regulation and sort of prioritizing sensation over the score or the number that goes with it. Like you getting up in the morning and saying, "Oh, what was my number? I didn't sleep well." How about just check in with how do you feel? Do you feel like you slept well or not? And let's not worry about what the number is. Also, we tend to want to fix it. What pill can I take? What thing can I do instead of treating the underlying cause of why something's not working? So the pull will be, she writes, towards practices like breath work, sound healing. We know that's very popular, somatic release, rituals and shared emotional experiences that prioritize you feeling safety and calm in your body and not worrying about what some external number is. In fact, there are spiritual wellness apps. Of course, there's apps for everything. And the market for those was over 2 billion in 2024, which I thought was a lot. It's expected to grow 15% a year through 2033. So this is an area for investment for anyone listening. Spiritual wellness apps, even though it's an app and it's still, digital, but giving people things to do and tools to do it with that are not reliant on trackers.
When we were at the Lake Nona Impact Forum, one company or one speaker who mentioned Ellie, I don't know if you remember that, for mental health coaching, especially for people in the military, because we know that a lot of times with military and PTSD, there's mental health issues and a high level of suicide. And what they found, and this is, a mental health app where speaking with someone, and they've called that person Ellie, who is actually not a real person, but a chat bot, but well trained, they have found is quite valuable because a lot of the military are reluctant to see a therapist, but they are more willing to talk with someone online and share more. And they've been able to even identify if there's potential issues. So it's hopeful that this online universe is going to have a lot of positive for us. But the trend of recognizing the over optimization backlash, I think that's the trend because, a few years ago, we weren't thinking about that. We were just so excited about a wearable and all it can tell us that we weren't recognizing yet that we can go overboard on this, just like we can go overboard on food and a lot of other things.
100%, Susie. And what you said earlier is another point that Jessica made here, that when you are constantly intervening with your score, it can erode your identity. And I thought, wow, that's a really interesting observation. Like you become a number and not just who you are. And that's probably not a good road to go down. In terms of what we can do in our business worlds about this trend, subtraction, right? Simplification in our environments, having infrastructure that is calmer, less screens, less clutter, quiet corridors, quiet spaces, sound softened buildings, sort of a shared decompression experience, just making sure we're not bombarding people with too many sounds and options. We've seen many spas lately that are not Scandinavian, but they have that sort of tendency for simplicity. And I do feel that it does kind of clear the brain when there's less clutter, like in Japanese style as well.
And I think that's part of why we're seeing, and I'm sure a lot of people are seeing, that nature is becoming more and more important. Just spending time in nature without all of these devices, I think, is a way for people to recalibrate. And that's one thing that I have found with all of the our arena of wellness professionals, that uh, encouraging activity in nature or spending time in nature as much as possible, that helps sort of get us back to our own senses. So I think that as professionals, we recognize the what's available, and it's going to become more. There's going to be more and more, because now the medical world is now starting to recognize. Before, they sort of poo-pooed, whatever your numbers are with this device or that device, but now they recognize, they can learn about you from your wearable. And so that's becoming more important to them. So we're going to have this optimization pull for quite some time. And so just recognizing that, it's okay to maybe take those things off. And the term that I think she used in the article, which I thought was good, is it's not just wearables, it's nearables. And nearables are things that will give you scores or information that you're not even wearing, but it's around you. I think, the, some of the digital, face recognition is one example. That's a nearable, and it has information. So it's going to get more and more where we're not even going to necessarily be wearing things all the time. It's just going to be around us all the time.
So true. Well, that topic leads us very nicely into the next trend, number 3, the rise of neuro wellness, regulating the nervous system for a new era of human well-being. This was written by Heidi Moon, who is the Vice President of Marketing and Communications for Global Wellness Institute and Summit. And it's really an excellent piece of writing and trend diving into this topic, which is kind of where our brain goes when we're trying to push back on all of the influences we've had. Heidi writes that our nervous systems were meant to keep us alive. Of course, that's why we have them. Fight or flight response. If you're about to be eaten by a woolly mammoth, you run. But we have worked ourselves into a state of constant alert now with the bombardment of information that we have. And that's what stresses us out and makes us sick. This chronic activation of the nervous system contributes to our poor sleep, anxiety, inflammation in the body, brain fog, and thus accelerated aging. So, what are we going to do about it? She has many suggestions.
Indeed. And I think, we normally know about fight or flight, and that we're just more into fight. And so we're hearing more about the vagus nerve. Sleep has become more and more important. The global wellness economy, we have the numbers that, it's 6.8 trillion is the whole global wellness economy now. And one of those bubbles, there's 11 sectors, is what we call mental wellness. And sleep is part of that. And we have seen the numbers of people investing in sleep continue to grow, and especially the hospitality industry. You've probably noticed this, Lisa, that that's one thing. I mean, the hospitality industry is about sleep for a lot of people. You're going to a hotel and sleep is important. And so I'm encouraged to see that they're doing more and more to, blackout shades and quiet and no lights and encouraging relaxing, bathing, that sort of thing. There's a lot of things that are being done, which I think is encouraging. So, but neuro wellness, I think the term is actually one of the parts of the trend because rather than using the term sleep health or some of the anxiety reducing kinds of things, the term neuro wellness is catching on. And I think I'm seeing that more and more. So I was surprised a lot of the media reacted very positively to this trend. And neuro wellness is a term I think that more in our industry will start using.
Well, we're all feeling it, right? We are all bombarded. And I think it was interesting that how Heidi pointed out that it is not a thing. It's not a single intervention or a piece of technology. It's an ecosystem of practices that influence your nervous system regulation, like breath and movement and sensation. Sleep being the primary one. Like she called it the primary on-ramp, and it's the most effective biological process at helping us have neuro wellness. But there are other things that we can do. We know that the sleep market is exploding. The numbers here were amazing. In the report, it says the sleep market was valued at $27 billion in 2025. That seems like a lot to me. It's supposed to go to $114 billion by 2030. That's in 5 years. It's going to about almost 5 times the size. So any investors listening, the sleep market is the place to be.
Well, that brings up a point that I just wanted to mention that, we're talking about these trends and they are on our website, globalwellnesssummit.com, and you can get a snippet of the information and it's very, very helpful. But the report itself, in fact, I don't remember what final number was. Oh, 120. Nope. 150 pages, right? Wasn't it? Yes, 100.
Yeah, I think it's more like that. Yeah.
Yes, 157 pages. So, and it is for sale. It's, it's not that much. I think it's $95. But for people who are really wanting to learn more about a specific trend, like Lisa is talking about some of the numbers and what I think that we encourage our trend writers to do is give a lot of examples. So and so is doing this. This company is doing that. And so you can have a lot of rich information, especially if there's one trend you want to really embrace or learn more about. So I just, there's just so much value in the reports because it's a deep dive from experts. So I just wanted to encourage that, especially like something like neuro wellness, or like you say with investors. We have the numbers from the Global Wellness Institute, our nonprofit, that talks about the sectors and the revenue. But for things like some of these specifics, like you say, investment in neuro wellness, or we'll talk a little bit later about longevity. There's some figures there that can be really helpful for people who are wanting to go further with some of these trends.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, this book is tremendous. It's beautifully done. There's so much information here. And it's like really a good resource to have around with all of the different aspects of it. So neuro wellness, practically speaking, in a spa or wellness or hospitality environment, just making sure that we have space that people can decompress in. We've all been in hotel rooms that when you turn out the light, there's like 18 red lights blinking and, the curtains don't work, the blackout curtains, the clock radio is so bright. I love rooms where they think about how to make it dark, cool, which is what you need for proper sleep. And just being conscious of the fact that it's gentle, it's environmental, it's not about doing more things, it's about creating better conditions for your systems to function. Let's move on to trend number 4, fragrance layering. This one really caught me by surprise. Crafting the scent of self. We know that the brain, the limbic system in the brain is where your olfactory memories are stored. And we've all known that, you walk into a home, you smell something, it reminds you of your grandmother's house, like you go right back to that space in your brain. And so now business is tapping into this with more focused businesses on fragrance. This trend was written by Olivia Houghton. She's the Insights and Engagement Director at the Future Laboratory, someone that you want writing your trends for you. And she wrote that smell maxing is trending. Gen Z and millennials are building fragrance wardrobes. So there's a lot going on about fragrance. Susie, do you wear a scent
I do wear a
regularly?
yes, I do, and when I first learned about this trend, because it kind of was a surprise to me, but I came across it because we've been in the Middle East for the past few summits. Last year we were in Dubai, and I learned that in the Middle East, they have a very different relationship with how important scent is, and that it isn't just, I mean, we're so used to, spritzing on, the fragrance of the day. But in the Middle East, it's got a little different history, which is, fragrance of a household, a layered kind of thing. And it made so much sense to me because, we're individuals with, makeup, with what we wear, or fashion. Why not with fragrance? And in a way, we have been doing it. We have uh, lotions that we put on and fragrances that we add. But now, and the other thing that caught our attention is that fragrance was a category in the beauty industry that has had huge growth.
Huge growth.
It's had huge growth, and you wonder, well, that's interesting, and why is that? And as you said, fragrance stirs up memories, and there's more to fragrance than just, oh, someone smells good, because there's a whole aromatherapy piece of it that in our world has been very important. So different expressions, different results from having an experience of fragrance. So I thought it was interesting. A fragrance wardrobe was the term that I thought was really fascinating, and the fact that people can be creative with it. So I think this is kind of a fun trend, and I have to think that the fragrance companies would like this for more people to think about doing fragrance layering, and therefore customizing what fragrance is perhaps their signature.
Yes, this kind of takes it from that concept of, we used to maybe have a scent, or you had a few fragrances and you wore one and when you went out at night. And this is more layering, or even layering of single scents. And I think young people find it very creative, as you would. I noticed that there's this business that popped up called Olfactory. And we have one here in Philadelphia. They have about 10 stores, and they are like big showrooms with scents, and you go in there and you make your own fragrance, and they walk you through the process, and you choose from the core fragrance, and then you augment, and you have a scentologist work with you. But there's 10 stores already. I thought, well, that's interesting. Somebody is investing in this. They see this trend coming. I also found a business in New York called 113 Spring, and you sit down and they design a scent with you. I don't know what the process is, and their website isn't really clear either, but apparently you sit down and you pay for an experience, and they work with you and your brain and to develop a scent for you. So I'm impressed already that businesses are jumping on this trend.
And this is an example, Lisa, of a trend where we feel like this is more future. We just like to let people know, hey, watch out for this. We're seeing, like you're saying, there's this happening around in different parts of the world, and then you're seeing this in New York. So it's something to think about. How can you maybe incorporate that? I know, the Aufguss, which has been a trend of, sauna experiences, that uses fragrance, and, just the whole aromatherapy piece that sort of really comes from our industry. I think we're going to see more and more of this. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. But it reminds me of the time when we predicted that forest bathing was going to be a trend. I mean, I think that was 10 years ago. And when we predicted that, nobody had heard of forest bathing except in Japan because
Of course.
it came from. But and people thought, well, what is that? But now, I mean, people know what forest bathing is, and it's a fantastic thing. And it had science behind it in Japan, because when you go out in the forest, as you are bathed with all the parts of that, it does affect your physiology. So I look at fragrance layering a little bit like the forest bathing. We're a little ahead of that, but, keep your eyes and ears open for what's going to happen there.
Well, I want to mention what she wrote in the report that they're doing at Ferrisbad in Oslo. Well, actually, it's in Larvik, south of Oslo. But the development manager, Lasse Eriksson, we all know Lasse, said that they are using scent-specific strategies in the property, throughout the property, and they have like a fresher, invigorating scent in the lobby as you enter and you check in, but they have more soothing herbal smells in treatment rooms, and they have deeper smells in relaxation rooms. And I thought that's really clever, and that's a great way that hospitality can use scent rather than just that old approach of a signature scent, using different scents in different places. All right, let's move on. Trend number 5. Ready is the new well. Preparing for climate disaster is the new preventative wellness. This trend was written by Cecilia Gurr and Skylar Hubler, who are journalists and cultural strategists at Backslash. We're living in a world where there's lots of drama every day. Today is no different. There are many factors behind this. We are certainly seeming to have more extreme weather. And also we know about these more because of the internet and social media. So I believe that things that would happen 10, 15 years ago, we just didn't know. And now we know everything every day. And we're thinking, oh my God, what's happening to the world? So I do think it's increasing the anxiety level in people, and they feel that they need to be prepared for the unknown. I mean, and I'm sure it was only accelerated by COVID. We've never known the future, and COVID told us that we definitely didn't. So that sort of state of preparedness, readiness that we want to be in now that we went through that, I believe is a part of this.
Well, Lisa, the subheading in this is Preparing for Climate Disasters, the New Preventative Wellness. And I would say that it's way beyond climate disaster. And right now, today, as we are facing what's happening with Iran and, the war and the issues that are coming up, not only in the Middle East, but elsewhere, the whole idea of disaster preparedness couldn't be more important. And I think that the thing about this trend is that even thinking about disaster preparedness as a trend that ready is the new well is just a new idea. Because I don't think we've been thinking about that, but it is so true. Think about, and they bring up in this trend, not only the concern people have about what could happen, but the people who've been affected by what's happened. I mean, right now, and I just heard from my husband because there's some family in Cyprus and they were, near what, with some things that happened. The way people are reacting, I mean, they need talk about mental health and the reaction and, unwellness in the, neural and physical way. I think us recognizing that disasters are part of us helping people go through things, or even being more at ease by being more prepared uh, can be helpful. I think it's a new conversation that I'm kind of thinking is a good one for us to put forward. And I can't imagine anything on this day where we're certainly seeing what's happening in the Middle East. Um, it's a good time to think about ready is the new well.
Cecilia and Skylar wrote about different kinds of preparedness, being ready mentally with the idea that something can happen, which I think most of us are now. We know that. But then the individual readiness, are you actually ready? I mean, not the idea of it. Have you purchased supplies? Do you have tarps or electricity or a generator or backup food or what have you? And then lastly, the community part, what they're saying is that meeting with your neighbor is more important in many ways than having a backup meal plan, because if something happens, you'll be in it together. So being ready with your community. They also pointed out that wellness spaces are hyper local, like they're known to their immediate environment. They are trusted and they are wired for behavior change. So perhaps spas and wellness businesses are going to be natural candidates for resilience infrastructure. So we should be prepared, at least in that aspect, to help the communities that we work in and live in.
They mention, gyms and fitness studios doubling as emergency shelters, um, teaching readiness, supporting people. And I think your point, Lisa, is exactly right. The research shows this. I think our industry is recognizing it. Other people are recognizing it. Community is so important for people's health and wellness. And so ready is the new well, including, uh, you know, your family, your friends, your coworkers. I think that's a big part of it. So, yeah, thank you for giving those examples, Horace. And yeah, and I think it's just the beginning of a conversation.
Trend number 6, skin longevity redefines beauty. Move over anti-aging. Innovations in skin regeneration usher in a new era. This was written by Claire McCormick, senior editor of Beauty Independent. And I love this trend because we've been saying these things for a while. We used to say things were anti-aging. And then at some point, professionals, we realized, well, that's probably not a great approach, because if we're not aging, we're not here, right? We age every day. It's inevitable. Let's age gracefully. And so that word anti-aging is going away, and we are seeing words like well-aging or skin longevity, in terms of reframing skin as an asset, not a cosmetic problem. It's inevitable that we age, but how our skin ages, we can certainly influence, at least simple ways. Obviously putting on cosmetics, drinking water, staying out of the sun. We know those things, but there's new technology as well that will help take this further.
Well, along the way, and I've been in this arena for many, many decades, sometimes you see something that you just say, oh my gosh, this is happening. It's a fit. And that's what we saw last year when we started talking about longevity. The longevity discussion is fairly new. Of course, the word has been around for a long time, but the fact that it's taking over a lot of discussion is fairly new. But it makes sense. And so the idea of sort of retiring anti-aging, I think it was very popular. I don't know, was it 10, 20 years ago when I think, was it Allure magazine or one of the magazines?
Allure said, we're not going to say that anymore.
Right. Said, we're not using that term anymore. And that started, discussion about. But the term longevity has very much resonated. And of course, skin longevity, that's a natural, I mean, not that it started there, but it certainly has found a home there. And I think it's interesting. I think also what's interesting is that when I have studied and Claire writes about this, the companies like L'Oreal and others that are embracing the term skin longevity, there's a recognition about skin being the body's largest organ. It's not just a marketing term. I think that there's a recognition that, wait a minute, we're talking about all these organs, the health of, our hearts and livers and lungs and whatever, but the skin, that is an important organ. And so recognizing that as an organ that tells us, how we're aging and if we're healthy. That's a new way of looking at it. And I learned through this trend how many researchers these very large companies employ to do research in this arena. And so just like with everything we're hearing about AI and the research and science is accelerating, and so there's some very new findings in the world of skin that is pretty exciting for our industry. So skin longevity redefining beauty and sort of taking over from anti-aging, but really ushering in a whole new era of skin regeneration. I think that's pretty exciting.
Very much so. And think about the opportunity. I mean, it is the business we're in. Ultimately, at our core was looking good, beauty. We expanded into spa and wellness, but your skin is something you present to the world every day. And it is also one of the first things to age. So spending a little time and effort to keep it in its best shape only makes sense. There has always been good products, but now we have technology on top of it. You have at-home devices, LED devices, products that lean into longevity in many ways. So we're going to see it not only as a thing that clients come to us for, but that we want to be able to retail products and devices to them to take home and use. And it also extends into the hair. Claire writes about scalp and hair using regenerative therapies there as well. I loved her point when she said that dermatologists will become kind of the science interpreter. You'll have all this data and the dermatologist will tell you how to manage it and how to use it. And that there may even be skin longevity panels that you would go and get your blood drawn for and see, what you could do about that. Who knows?
It's true. And when you look at the global wellness economy, the personal care and beauty bubble has always been the largest and still is. It's a very important part for people who are investing in their health and wellness. So I think that's important. And now I have a question for you, Lisa. Have you been using any of these red light masks?
I have. I was lucky enough to receive a Soluma LED mask, and I do use it, and I do think it is helping me to maintain my skin where it is. We shall see.
Well, I have to say, Lisa, and I know you've had a background in makeup and beauty. You have fantastic skin. But I will say that I just was introduced, I'm sorry, I don't know the name of a mask that I put on, and I just started, so I can't say I've seen anything yet. But in fact, it was something I purchased at a place where I went for a facial, and they were selling these, and I thought, well, I'm in the industry. I need to, but it's very compelling. I mean, if you can sit there for 10 minutes a day with red light on you, you can even meditate with that.
Exactly. I mean, why not? What's the harm? I mean, maybe you play solitaire or something while you're doing it, but there's no bad thing that comes from it. And who knows? I hope it's good. Ask me in another 10 years.
Right. And we say we hope there's nothing bad because that's the thing. You never really know. It's like the GLPs, they doesn't, hopefully there's nothing bad. But, at my age, maybe, you're younger than I am, but at my age, I think there's not much risk in my trying some red light therapy.
We shall see.
We shall see. We shall see.
Trend number 7, fun. the festivalization of wellness, a new wave of healthy, wild, cathartic wellness raves and gatherings. So, we're used to thinking of wellness as a practice something you do for yourself. You go to yoga, you go to the sauna, but you did it alone, and that is not the case anymore. Thank you for the young people for making it communal. It's becoming more of a group event. People like to do things together. And we've talked about this, that young people today, your Gen X, your Gen A, whatever comes after, even millennials are Gen Z, I meant to say. They are very health conscious. They don't drink much alcohol. They are at the gym all the time. They lead pretty healthy lives and they like to do it together. And so wellness has become their way to connect with their friends, as opposed to, Susie, when you and I were younger and we met at a bar. It's what you did, right? You went to a bar when you wanted to see your friends. Now they're doing fun things that are healthy, which obviously is a wonderful trend. And it addresses many issues: community, mental wellness, and of course, being healthy in the long run.
I think this trend is really fun, and it is about fun. And you know, it's, I think, kind of a response to COVID. I think that one thing we learned with COVID is that there's a lot of health in being together with other people, and certainly the research bears that out. That as people are aging, that their circle of friends contributes to their health and their longevity more than a lot of other things like nutrition or exercise. Or I mean, it really is important. So the festivalization. And, in our world, I would say one thing we did contribute to that is Global Wellness Day. I think, Elgin started that many years ago, and the second Saturday of every June, of June, there's Global Wellness Day, and it's a matter of encouraging people in the industry to give something back to make, um, invite people to events, do a big rave kind of thing, or give away some treatments in various ways. So that is an example. But now I'm reading about things like wellness raves, which I've not been to, sober morning dance events. That actually sounds good. Um, and collective release events like Sanctum, which we have done because we've had Sanctum group at our Global Wellness Summits for the last couple of years. A crying club. I have not done that, but ooh, I don't know. That might be interesting, but I can imagine you'd feel pretty somehow with some relief after that. But Six Senses doing the Alma Festival, Euphoria integrating local traditions, wellness festivals, Wonder Fruit Glow, Liquid Sound in Germany, Culture of Bathing, which was just in New York. Did you go to that?
I went to it. Yes, I did. It was fascinating. I mean, go being outside and it was 25 degrees out, but you didn't need a cold plunge, right? You came out of the sauna and you just stood there without your robe on for a few minutes and you cooled off. Yeah, and it was fun. There were hundreds of people there.
Yeah, that's an exciting trend, and I'd like to see that really, have more and more momentum, and I think it will. Like you said, the next generation or the next few generations are really embracing that, and really, I think even my generation, it's kind of fun to be with people and doing things together. So
Well, I neglected to mention the author, Megan Whitby, who is a freelance journalist who used to write for Spa Business, and she is now a brand manager at Mindstream. She is of a younger generation, and she included in this trend the fact that the average adult spends 7.5 hours per day looking at some kind of screen. And so just reading that makes me think, yes, we do need to put things down and go be with others. So I love that. Well, the next trend is going to be one of my favorites because it's around sports. Number 8, women in sports. The revolution continues. More women become empowered as athletes as the women's sports economy booms. This was written by Amy Eisinger, who's a writer, editor, and digital creator for Well Plus Good, which is now the Daily Skim, I believe. Now, you'd have to be in, seclusion not to know that there's a lot happening with women's sports, especially in the US where we have many more leagues now. We've had a WNBA for years, but some of the new younger players, Caitlin Clark being probably the most famous one, have brought a lot of attention to it. And of course, our own women's soccer team here in the US, they're incredible. But there are wonderful women's soccer teams around the world. So the market is growing because people are watching now. These sports were always there and women were participating, but if you weren't the parent or related to these women, you weren't turning it on. And now people are watching. Deloitte valued this market at 1.8 billion in 2024 in the US, and it's projected to hit 2.3 billion just in 1 year. So the growth is there.
And you are the best person, Lisa, to talk about sports. I don't know if all the listeners know how you
How sports obsessed I am. Thank you, Susie.
sports obsessed. I would say if I need to have any information about any sports question, I would ask Lisa.
Oh, thank you.
The fact that you're noticing, the women more involved, we're certainly seeing that as well. I think the first time we had a trend that had to do with sports was like 3-4 years ago, when really, in a way, it was siloed apart from the wellness industry. But that has changed. And I think part of that is science, part of that is just recognizing how valuable sports are. And then, of course, with COVID. But there has been some improvement in the pay. That was an issue, which now brings more sports forward. And then I think I've noticed, and then Lisa, you and I had the experience at the Lake Nona forum where we met Serena Williams. A lot of celebrities have become, Tom Brady and, on and on, who've become part of. In fact, I just heard that Simone Biles is now a brand ambassador for the Mandarin Oriental. So we had Simone Biles at our summit right before she went for her last, I think, final Olympics. The idea that sports stars, sports athletes are coming into the wellness space. I mean, it's a natural, I think, and we're embracing it also. And now, especially, I think the other thing that's happened is with the GLP-1s and the recognition in our industry that people are, losing more weight with these medications, but also more muscle mass. So the importance of strength training has become more important in our arena. And Serena Williams is certainly an example of that. She shared, some of what she's doing now at Lake Nona. And she has, I think it's 2 children, doesn't she have 2 kids?
Yes, she does.
And she's also a brand spokesperson for a company, I think, called Row, which is a GLP-1. And I think there was even a Super Bowl ad with her. I mean, it's just an example of what you were saying, that women in sports, it's a revolution now, and it's continuing. And I think we'll see more and more of it.
Well, one of the things that Amy wrote was that female athletes, they're getting power as competitors, but also as founders and brand ambassadors for other businesses because people are looking up to them. And young girls, of course, look up to that. Very important. I thought it was very fun that she wrote about there are women's sports bars now where they just play women's sports on the televisions. And the first woman that opened one in Portland, Oregon said, it was a little weird at first, and only women came. But now, it's just like a regular place where people come to do what you do in a bar, but they're watching women's sports while they're there. I think the underlying message here is to see women's bodies not as objects of desire, but objects of strength. Strong, I'm fit, I lift weights, and that is certainly the way that women want to be recognized.
And I noticed, with these women's sports bars, that I think one of the first ones was branded women's sports bras, BRAS. And I thought to myself, I wonder if that, it's cute, but I wonder if it would maybe not feel so open for men to attend, or maybe it would actually attract.
Maybe it attracts them. Who knows? Maybe they want to see sports bras, or they think they will. Anyway, trend number 9, kind of a scary one. Tackling microplastics as a human health issue. We've grasped the severity of the microplastics crisis. This year is about action. This trend was written by longtime two members of our wellness world, Dr. Jerry Boddicker, who is a public health researcher, and Trent Munday, Senior Vice President at Mandara Spa. But they are speaking so often and eloquently about this topic, and it is scary. I had them on the StarrCast podcast in the fall, I think in September, so there's a whole episode dedicated to this. The fact that 130 million metric tons of plastic enter the environment every year, and we are eating them and ingesting them, and now the bits of plastic are showing up in the blood, the lungs, the brain. How does it get there? It's scary.
Lisa, I listened to that podcast and I thought it was terrific. I hope everyone will find it on your podcast and listen to it. And one of the things I learned on your podcast, even though I'm sure I guess it's probably also in the writing, is that, where do we get all of these plastics? And, are we eating it? Are we breathing it? And Jerry made the point that we're breathing it for the most part. I mean, it certainly if you're doing anything that heats plastic, like, heating plastic food in plastic containers, thing that is obviously not a good idea because then the plastic leaks out into the food and then that's how it gets into the body. But what he said was in the air is where we're getting most of it. And a lot of it comes from tires. If we're walking down the street and because all these cars are going by and the tires, which are made of plastic or petroleum, etc., that the heat of those tires is what brings all of this into the air and that we are breathing it. I will say that after that, I decided I am no longer walking or jogging on busy streets. I live here in Miami, so I try very much to be closer to the ocean or water if at all possible. And, it's not totally possible to avoid streets, but it certainly was a wake-up call. I think what's interesting about this trend is it's not that this idea of microplastics as a human health issue is all that new to people these days. But what is new, and I think it's important, is that the wellness arena is saying, okay, this is important. We need to do something about it so that there's more, people wanting to be more proactive in mitigating this. And so I think that's what's new. And that's the trend that part of the trend that I think we liked in terms of trumpeting, that it's time for action. And we as the wellness arena should be at the forefront, saying things, bringing this up and seeing if we can help make a difference.
For sure. And think about it. I mean, the plastics enter our body in one of 3 ways: ingestion, inhalation, and skin absorption. And many of them are microplastics that are intentionally used in cosmetics manufacturing. So we're part of the problem here. And, we're a long way from solving it because, unfortunately, plastic production is going up. You wouldn't think that was true given that what we've known for the last few years, but yes, we are producing more plastic in the world than we ever did, and the waste management cannot keep up with it. So this is definitely an issue. And when you look around your home and your kitchen and you see how many things you have that have plastic, you really have to think twice about it. I applaud Jerry and Trent for bringing this to our attention, and they have a microplastics watch initiative as part of Global Wellness Summit that you can join if you're interested and you're a wellness professional and you'd like to know more. You can look it up on the website. So we'll move on to trend number 10, our last trend: longevity residences. Health span finally hits home. We've been talking about wellness real estate for years, and of course, Susie and your organization have started the Wellness Real Estate Symposium, which has become so popular in New York every May. And it's a wonderful event where you learn all about how people build healthy homes and buildings, and architects are designing and the manufacturers are creating things that are healthy to live around. It's a whole industry that I never knew about before. And now, inevitably, it is creeping in to the home front. So homes that integrate preventive medicine, diagnostics, and AI tracking, as well as the obvious things like light, windows that can open fresh air, the ability to walk, the ability to go outside and have plants. But these are more tech driven.
Well, thank you for mentioning our leadership in this arena. And yes, in fact, the Global Wellness Institute did the very first research study. It was in 2018 on wellness, real estate, and communities. And the first to quantify this, to introduce it for many people for the first time. And since that time, it has accelerated. And we just came out, the Global Wellness Institute, with the latest research report last year. And it's Build Well to Live Well, the Future. And there's a lot of great data in there. And by the way, of the 11 categories, sectors of wellness under the wellness economy umbrella, which is 6.8 trillion, the one category that has had the most resilience since COVID and has grown the fastest is the wellness real estate category. It has grown, and we learned, I remember with COVID, it was 2020 and January, February, March, and oh my gosh, things were shutting down. People were not traveling for wellness. Gyms and spas closed. But the wellness real estate category, those people, their phones were ringing off the hook. We did a webinar at that point, and we were kind of surprised because we had on the webinar people from South Africa and people from Asia, and all of the phones are ringing because people recognize, boy, I want to live somewhere where it's a healthy environment, where the home, the apartment, the condo, where it's healthy, there's fresh air, that the building is focused on my health. So now the term longevity comes along. And so now we're thinking, and we're starting to see the term longevity residences. And this is written by Jane Kitchen, who, is still with Spa Business and, is a real trend analyst and works with us now also. So we wanted to explore what is the difference, or what is likely to be the difference between longevity residences and wellness real estate, because, a lot of similarities. And as we've learned in this arena, people start using the terms, if they want to use the term, they use it. So here's what Jane came up with, and I would agree with this at this stage, and it's early, so I think there's room for this to move here and there. The difference between longevity residences and wellness real estate is the term longevity is starting to imply diagnostics. That with longevity, there is diagnostics. Because there are more and more medical diagnostics where you can measure various things that about your health. And that's a little bit outside of the wellness arena, where we talk about exercise and nutrition and stress reduction and sleep and nature and so on. But diagnostics, which are on the medical side, are starting to be woven into some residences. Now, I'm not saying that everyone that's using the term longevity residences is using diagnostics, but we're seeing that that's kind of where it's going. Places like the Estate, they have come out and they are definitely having diagnostics as part of what their plan is. There's a few other organizations that are doing things where, like, for example, Trivananda in Thailand, they are working with Clinique La Prairie. Same thing in Dubai. There's Clinique La Prairie, which is paired with another organization. So we're seeing that this pairing, and oftentimes they are separate because it's not easy for a wellness or a wellness real estate company to get into diagnostics, but it's a matter of uh, partnering with or recommending or incorporating within the diagnostics where you're living. And the same thing even with the homes, because wellness real estate can be, homes that have, great air quality and good water and so on. But then some of them can be doing more diagnostics, more measurement and so on. So I think it's a area to watch.
Well, I love that explanation that you just gave. What separates it from wellness real estate and is the diagnostics. I hadn't considered that, but you're right. That is mentioned in the properties or the developments you mentioned. They all talk about diagnostics, human performance, and preventative medicine as one continuous experience within the development. I mean, who wouldn't want that, right? I mean, the issue we're facing with it is that these are expensive places to live right now, luxury tier, but hopefully as they scale and the demand grows, the prices will come down. Jane writes that future homes may be evaluated not by square footage, but by how well they support your health span across decades. Maybe, a smaller home will be worth more if it helps you to live longer. That certainly makes sense.
It does, and I think, I think it's a space to watch. It's developing, and I would mention that, as I said at the beginning, we announced these 10 trends at our press event, and and Beth McGordy, she deals with the press all the time. So, in fact, I think it was Monday, she reported, what the different magazines are writing and newspapers and the interviews she's been asked to do. And she let us know that the most asked for trend for information was this one, longevity residences. So the media is very interested in this. So I thought that was interesting. And I'm not surprised because it is very future and it's not obvious. Like you were saying, it's not obvious. Well, what is it? What is this compared to, wellness real estate? But we're seeing that it's the diagnostics that are making the difference. And, one other thing that Jane mentioned in this, and it's a little bit hard to see in the trend, but it makes sense to me that right now, a lot of wellness real estate, people are creating it for the purpose of, perhaps selling it in 5 years. So it's a little bit of a short-term window. But longevity residences, this is more of a longer-term window. People are not necessarily going to buy them and then be finished or want to sell them. It's an investment in your longevity. So you're going to buy and then live there hopefully a much longer life. I was just at Rancho La Puerta a few weeks ago, and they have Rancho La Puerta residences. And I would say, even though they don't have diagnostics, although I think they're going to be adding some, that seems to me in the spirit of longevity because, and of course, they're connected with Rancho La Puerta. So if you're living there, you're using so much of what's available there. The buyers there are interested in their long-term health. So it'll be interesting to see if longevity residences might eventually apply outside of major diagnostics, maybe, even just little minor diagnostics, because with diagnostics, you can tell here's where your blood pressure is now, here's where your vitals are. And then, you can test again in 6 months or a year and you see improvement. So I think that's interesting.
Well, you and I have seen those things at CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, toilets that measure your urine count and mirrors that can tell you things about yourself. So why not incorporate that into where you live? I mean, again, more information maybe than we want, but there for those who want it. Well, Susie, thank you so much for this discussion. I'm holding up a picture of the Future of Wellness Trends book. You can see how big it is. Lots in here. You can order it online. Susie, thank you as always for your time and energy and for driving the industry in the way that you do and helping us to look forward and find our path.
Well, thank you, Lisa. And, I have been in this industry a long time, but I am so excited about future. I mean, there's so much momentum and, this medical and wellness and longevity piece coming together. It's a great time to be in this industry and to help shape it. So, and I thank you, Lisa, for the podcast that you do because it's the one I enjoy listening to the most when I'm on my treadmill. Because it's always, enjoyable. I know some of the people you're interviewing, and I always learn a lot.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that endorsement. And thanks to everyone who's listening. Hope you take something away to improve your business with, and we'll see you again soon.